Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show on this Friday, the 19th of November, 2021. Thank you for tuning in. You know, this is an important show because I'm going to explain to you guys in the markets. I'm not going to do the market report this morning. I'm just going to explain to you guys what's really going on. You know, the Fed has decided to taper. And it's they're going to taper right down to zero in quite a quick period of time. They're planning on 2022, I guess by mid-year 2022. They're starting with a reduction of, I guess, $10 billion in treasuries and $5 billion in mortgage-backed securities. Right away. Well, you know what? This is going to be an unmitigated disaster. I'm going to explain to you guys. You guys only got a few months to prepare for this. And I'm going to use analogies to try to explain to you guys why. The Fed is going for what I would call, in football, they call it a Hail Mary pass. Basically, what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to stop inflation. This is their idea anyway. This is what they're thinking of. And have you guys ever seen an elevator? You know, you got an elevator shaft, and you got the elevator goes up into the building. There's cables that pull the elevator up into the air. Well, inflation is like that elevator going up in the shaft. You know, it's going up and up and up. It's near the top of the building. It's going up fast. Well, what the Fed's decided to do with this Hail Mary pass is they're going to cut the cables. Basically, to the economy, they're going to cut the cables. And you got Chairman Powell up there right now with a hacksaw going away at the cables. Just his arm's just going as fast as he can go. That's basically what they're trying to do here with this taper. Because what the taper will do is cutting back these bond purchases. It's a no-brainer. You're going to get rising yields. Well, you got a housing market bubble out here right now. In fact, around the world, you know. And, you know, if you got rising yields, what that means is, I mean, it's already starting to turn housing markets. Just about right to the point where it's starting to turn. What happens if you got to pay higher mortgage rates and stuff? Okay, that's just one thing, you know. But if we get a U.S. 10-year that starts to go over, say, 2%, well, you know, the stock market is just going to, all the markets, in fact, are just going to fall out of bed. They're just going to go down. And cryptocurrencies? You guessed it. People will be paying off margin. What'll happen to cryptos? So they're going to cut the cable, and this is a Hail Mary pass. What they're planning it on is cutting the cable, and they're going to try to stop the elevator from crashing all the way down to the ground floor and hitting the bottom and smashing to pieces. That's the economy. Okay, and the Hail Mary passes are going to cut the cable, let the elevator fall down the shaft, and somehow try to stop it before it hits the ground floor. This is what the Fed's plan is. And that's the silliest plan in the world. Because, I mean, what's the chance of success? I would say their chance of success is like 1 in a million, in my estimation, right? But what's really going to happen? What's really going to happen, you know? Okay. It's like a person that's really overweight, you know, and they decide to go on a diet. Hey, you guys must have seen this. If you haven't had it happen to you, you've probably seen it happen to a family member or somebody, acquaintance that you know. They decide to go on a diet because they're overweight. They go on a diet, and success! They lose like 20 pounds, you know? What happens then? Well, they quit their diet because they've been successful. They've lost 20 pounds. And they gain it all back and more. Why? Why? Well, I'll tell you exactly why. When they go on a diet, that period when they're on the diet, the body says to itself, hey, I'm starving. And what it does is it slows down the metabolism. Well, when they reach the peak of their diet, when they're at the peak of their success, after they've lost the 20 pounds, their metabolism is going really, really, really slow. Like tick. It was going like this. The metabolism was going like this. Tick, 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 before the diet, right? After their diet is over, after they've lost the 20 pounds, their metabolism is going like this. Tick, 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 right? The problem is, the metabolism stays like that for a couple months after they quit their diet, like 2 months or 3 months. Probably in about 90 days. The metabolism, it very slowly creeps back to its normal speed, but it stays slow. During that period in time, that's when they gain all their weight back, but it's still slow when they've gained all their weight back, and then it's still slow for a month or two more, and then they gain like 10 pounds more than they were before. So the end result is they're bigger than they ever were before. And this has happened to so many people. You know, if they really want to diet and really want to lose weight, what they got to do is they've got to figure in that end period of their diet and stick with the regimen while they slowly speed their metabolism back up to normal, which takes probably about 90 days. Okay, so this is how this relates to what the Fed's doing is. The Fed's basically going to put us all on a diet. A financial diet. Cutting back. Right? Well, what's going to happen is they're going to slow everything down so quickly that it's going to be like that free fall in the elevator shaft. Well, it's a no-brainer. This whole thing's going to build up what's called momentum as it starts to fall. It's going to pick up momentum very, very quickly because we are so over-leveraged. The economy is so over-leveraged. And that momentum is going to require that much more to slow it down. It's like a runaway, like I did in my illustration the other day. It's like a runaway train. What happens is it gathers kinetic energy as it's moving down the track faster and faster. Well, that's the way with an elevator when it's falling down the elevator shaft. It goes faster and faster on its way to the ground floor, and it gathers up steam. It gathers up energy. Well, it takes that much energy again once you start that process to stop the thing. It's like the flywheel effect. You know, if you've got a machine in your yard and it's got a flywheel on it, it takes a little bit of energy to get that flywheel going, but once the engine's really got that flywheel going, it takes a lot to stop it again. It's like kinetic energy, and it's the law of the universe. It's a law of physics, and this is exactly what's going to happen to the Fed. What they're starting is a process, a downward spiral out there, and they're not going to have the guts to follow through. Like in the diet, you need to follow through. What they're going to do is at a certain point, they're going to say, oh my gosh, what have we done? Stock market's falling out of bed. Interest rates are rising. The housing market's crashing. Blah, blah, blah. It's gonna be like out of control. Everything out of control. Then they're going to have to put the brakes on. They're going to have to put the brakes on this. There's no other way around it. At a certain point in time, they're going to have to put the brakes on this thing. And we haven't got a lot of time to prepare, guys. They're going to have to put the brakes on this thing. When they put the brakes on this thing, what does that mean? How are they going to do that? This is exactly how are they going to do that. Because I'm going to tell you, they only got really one tool in their bag. Money creation. Or digital monetary unit creation. It's not even money. It's just a bunch of willy-nilly printing. Well, they don't even print it anymore. They just push a bunch of buttons into a computer. But that's the only real tool that they have. And when you only have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So when we get to this point where the economy has all this momentum in a downward spiral, and it's a no-brainer. That's what's going to happen. I mean, they just cannot cut all their bond purchases without interest rates going up. Interest rates go up, all these bubbles are going to start to pop. This should be a no-brainer. What are they going to do when it all starts to cascade down and fall? Everything starts to fall rather rapidly. Well, it's going to hit a certain point where they're going to get scared. What do? We've created this downward spiral, and now it's out of control. Well, they only have one tool, money creation. And so that's the tool that they're going to use. But what's going to happen then? when they use that tool of money creation. Well, the jig's up. I mean, the jig is almost up now. I mean, they've reached the limit. Everybody's saying, hey, we're getting skyrocketing inflation. People are getting scared. They're buying cryptocurrencies. They're buying gold. They're buying silver. Everything was up until the Fed started talking about this taper. And, you know, what's going to happen is a no-brainer. They're going to set in motion deflation. They're going to release that monster out of the bag to try to control the inflation. But the problem is deflation moves so much faster than inflation, guys. Inflation's it's a slow, drug-out thing, you know. We've been experiencing it for a number of months now. People even argue whether it's actually real or whatever. It's because it's slow. It's becoming entrenched, so, but it's slow. Deflation is not slow. Deflation is tremendously powerful. But you have to understand something about deflation. Deflation has an arch nemesis. Central bank printing is deflation's arch nemesis. Even though deflation is super powerful, it's like Superman. But you have to understand that there's a kryptonite for deflation, and that's money creation. And it's the only tool they have, and it's what they're going to use when they create this mess. Interest rates start to rise. They're going to have to do what's called yield curve control. And they're going to have to go back to quantitative easing again. But in a bigger, more meaningful way. They're going to have to, really, they're going to have to go back to unconventional monetary policy. They're going to have to relate to. And when they do that, all the investors in the world are going to say, hey, you know what? The Fed is out of tricks. Their bag is empty. All they can do is print, print, print. And this is going to lead us into the hyperinflation. And this is the trigger. Now, I've been talking about this hyperinflation for a while. I'm going to tell you guys what. There's two roads here. If the Fed would hold the line right now, and quit this talk about taper and just hold the line, it would take us a long time to get into hyperinflation. It might actually take us several years. But this taper is going to move us into hyperinflation, just like the person. You know, you got these people out there who never dieted in their life, and they're thinner people. The people that diet are the fat people. Dieting makes you fatter. Well, that's the way. It triggers the opposite of what you want. And that's the way with this taper. This taper is going to push us into the hyperinflation much faster than if they were to just hold the line. If they were to just hold the line right now, we might have 2-3 years before, maybe even 5 years before we get there, if they just hold the line. But by doing this, by tapering right now, they're going to have to come in and correct the fall that they create. When they make the markets fall, they're going to have to come in and correct it. And by correcting it, they're going to move us into the hyperinflation so much faster. I would say you can almost count it in months now. Because this thing, they're not going to get to the middle of next year with this taper. They're not going to get until whenever they plan on getting it to zero. They're not going to get there. They might get halfway. This first move that they're making right now, guys, of, what is it? 10 billion and 5 billion mortgage-backed securities and 10 billion in treasuries they're cutting back. They might get away with that. In fact, very likely they will. It's going to be a few more moves down, a few more chess moves. They might get away with the first chess move. A few more chess moves, that's when they're going to get checkmated. They're not going to get all the way into this before they're going to get checkmated by the economy. And that's when they're going to have to turn around and turn on this, because it's going to be a sudden sort of thing. I'm not exactly sure, but I know they're not going to get to zero without interest rates exploding to the upside. And, you know, the bond market's broken. And because it's broken, they think that, do they really believe that they can do what they did back in the 1970s to control inflation by taking interest rates up to 15%? Do they really believe that they can get away with that now? I have to laugh at them. Because they're not in touch with the real economy out there and what's really going on. They're academics. They're mostly lawyers and stuff. And they sit around a table and they discuss these things, what they're going to do, the policies that they're going to make. But then they all come to a consensus on their policies. And they've probably come to some sort of a consensus on this. And they're all looking to the guy next to him. They sit in a chair and they look to the guy next to him. He says, yes, this is good. And then they say that, yes, this is good. And then the next guy next to them says, well, two of them have said, yes, this is good. I'm going to say it too. And then we got four of them that say, yes, it's good. And then the next guy looks over and he says, well, if they all think it's good, then I'm going to say it's good too. And the next thing you know, they're passing this amendment that they're going to do whatever they're going to do. And this is how real life works, but without thinking about what the ramifications are going to actually be of all of this. Now, I'm sitting here, and I'm thinking about the ramifications. They couldn't get away with it before when the economy was much better before COVID. How in the heck are they going to do it now? When we're just recovering from... We're not even over. We're not even over this thing. Well, they're going to bring the hyperinflation. That's what they're going to do, guys. This is it. And you've only got you've got a limited period of time to prepare for hyperinflation. I'm thinking to myself that they're going to play this game of silly beggars. Now, I'll tell you what silly beggars is. You guys want to know what silly beggars is? Over in England, they got a term they use called silly beggars. Okay, you got a mouse, and he's inside a cage, and he's running on a little wheel. He thinks he's going someplace. But actually, he's going nowhere. He's playing a game of silly beggars. A game of silly beggars is something where there's no profit for you. You're not getting anywhere. You're doing something over and over again. It's kind of like they say the definition of insanity. It's doing the same thing over and over again when you're not actually accomplishing anything from it. Like you're going backwards. And in England, they call that a game of silly beggars. That's what it's called. Well, the Fed's playing a game of silly beggars right now. This is not going to solve the problem. All they're actually doing is trying to buy time. But they could buy more time if they would just say, hey, let's just leave everything alone. Don't tamper with this machine. If they didn't tamper with this machine right now, they could buy more time. Because the economy's starting to roll along like a new normal. That's what's happening. And by tampering with this very complex machine, they're going to drop a monkey wrench down into the gears, and then they're going to have to try to fix that problem that they create. And this is going to really lead us into hyperinflation. So you only got a few months to prepare. What's hyperinflation going to look like? It's going to be the worst thing you've probably ever experienced in your life. Because what it does is it just completely destroys the middle class. Until the point where they're like pounding their fist on the desk saying, I can't, Martha, I can't take this anymore. That's basically the way it goes. And he's going to have a fit, and Martha's going to have to calm him down. She's going to have to give him some medication to calm him down. But everybody's going to be in that mood. What's the world going to look like? Well, it's just the destruction of the middle class. And that's what the central banks are doing to us. They're destroying the middle class. And so you're just going to have ultra poor and ultra rich. To have a good economy, you need to have a thriving middle class. Well, it's too late, guys. They've already decided what they're going to do. And this is going to create what I've been preaching for years. I say it's coming, I call a deflationary spike event, because it's not going to last real long until the Fed relents, because it's going to be very powerful. It's going to move very quickly. So now we're going to get to the nitty-gritty. What about your investments out there? Now, the next thing I'm going to say is not financial advice, but I'm just going to tell you what I see coming, and you can take it for what you want to take it for. It's not I'm not trying to tell you what to buy or what not to buy. You can do whatever in the heck you want with your money. But we could see, when the markets plunge, an awful lot of people are going to lose a lot of money. But what's going to happen on the other side of this when the Fed relents and they say, hey, we got to turn this back up again? Well, an awful lot of people are going to gain a lot of money. Just think back to what those people who bought into the stock market after it fell at the start of the pandemic. Remember how the stock market fell down and then the Fed come out with their big $2.2 trillion stimulus plan? What did the markets do? Think about something like that happening all over again. A big fall in Bitcoin, the cryptos, a big fall in all the markets, and then on the other side, when the Fed comes back to stimulate, what's going to happen? We're going to head into the hyperinflation, but what's going to happen to your investments? They're going to go to the moon. The sky's the limit. The sky's the limit to how high the stock market can go in a hyperinflation. The sky's the limit to how high gold and silver can go in hyperinflation. The sky's the limit to how high all these things can go, like cryptos and everything, in a hyperinflation. But you got to wait until that transition moment when the Fed finally realizes that they've made a big mistake and they get back in there to hit the printing press big time again like they've never hit it before. That's going to be the great print. I've been talking for years about the great print. At the end of this taper, maybe not even before we get to the end of it, is going to come the great print when they realize the big mistake that they've made, the big blunder, the big error. There's no other way out. They just can't let it. They cannot let the system deleverage completely. Completely deleverage. In a natural deleveraging process. Because everything would go down. The stock market would go down by 90%, and it would just basically, things would not get to 90%. It would freeze. It'd probably freeze after it's down 40 or 50%. And it'd still be falling. And everything would just stop. Money would just evaporate from the system because money is the creation of debt. And when the debts are paid off, the money disappears. Ultimate catastrophe. They would lose control over the system. The ones who are in power, and they can't let that happen. They will stop it before it gets to that point. They cannot lose control, because losing control would mean they lose control. They lose power over everything. It's just, well, basically when the lights all go out and the internet goes down, they lose control. They lose power. Nobody knows who they are anymore, or nobody even cares. They're not going to let it get to that point. You really think they'll let it get to that point? Not a snowball's chance in double hockey sticks will they let it ever get to that point of losing control. So they're going to stop it. They will stop it. I don't even think it's going to get down 20% overall before they'll stop it. They'll put a stop to it. And it's when they put a stop to it, that's when everything's going to go back up again. So if everything goes down and everything goes back up, you know, some people are going to profit bigly from this. Big, huge, monstrous are going to profit from this. And, I mean, you guys basically got the playbook now. They're giving you the playbook of what's coming in the next number of months. So you can think about that and mull it through your mind, but you know I'm telling you straight from what I believe is going to actually happen. You get my opinion on it. Thank you guys for listening. You know, you guys out in my audience are great. I really appreciate my audience out there. And keep up the good work in the comments section. I love lots of comments. I don't care if you just say hi, I'll say hi back. We'll catch you guys in the next show. Bye-bye.